See, the way that most people talk about quantum leaping actually gives their power away because it turns awareness into fantasy and responsibility into manifestation. Quantum leaping is actually why your life doesn't change, even when you're conscious, spiritual, and doing the work. Because here's the uncomfortable truth. If quantum leaping worked in the way that social media says it does, you wouldn't still be stuck in the same patterns. Same relationships, same money stress, same emotional loops. So either quantum leaping is fake, or it's been deeply misunderstood. In this video, I'm going to show you what quantum leaping actually is, using real concepts from quantum mechanics, nervous system science, and lived experience. You'll see why visualization alone doesn't collapse timelines, why awareness without embodiment goes nowhere, and why most people unknowingly revert right at the edge of change. It isn't about escaping your life. It's about understanding why change actually happens and why it usually doesn't. But to see that clearly, we need to dismantle the fantasy version of quantum leaping first. There's a very clear structure behind every real quantum leap, a few key elements that have to be present or the shift simply can't stabilize. We'll get there by the end, but first we need to understand why most people never even make it that far. Quantum leaping has gained a lot of popularity in the spiritual community as a way to shift your reality into a different timeline, leaving your old life behind. It comes from the study of quantum mechanics, though it was never meant to be a self-help fantasy. It was a way of describing probability, observation, and how reality responds to interaction. But somewhere along the way, spirituality turned that metaphor into literal escape. Jump timelines, leave this reality, manifest a whole new life. And without realizing it, quantum leaping became another form of avoidance, because it lets you imagine a better future without changing how you respond right now. And imagination without responsibility doesn't move reality. More on that later. Quantum mechanics is the study of matter at the smallest measurable scale. And when we look at how the universe behaves on that level, it can actually help us to understand our human existence, because the quantum field is the very fabric that makes up everything we see, touch, and experience. It shows us that there are countless probabilities for future outcomes, depending on how systems interact with their environment. But that idea alone is still too vague. So let's break apart the actual concepts from quantum mechanics that people are pointing to when they talk about quantum leaping. At the core of all of this lives something called superposition. In physics, superposition means that a quantum system can exist in multiple possible states at the same time, until interaction forces a resolution. So in simple terms, your future is not fixed. Before a decision is made, multiple outcomes are possible. These are often what people refer to as timelines. But once you act, one path becomes real and the others dissolve. The key here is that interaction is what collapses possibility, not imagination, not visualization, not affirmations alone. Which brings us into the next concept I want to introduce here. It's known as wave function collapse. And this describes how a system resolves from many possibilities into one definite outcome when it's measured or interacted with. Most people have heard about this through the double slit experiment. And I'm not going to go too deep into that experiment itself here. There's plenty of in-depth explanations online. But the key important takeaway is this. Possibility collapses into reality through interaction, not intention alone or even awareness alone. When a system interacts with its environment, information is exchanged, constraints are applied, and one outcome becomes real. In human terms, this looks like your choices meeting the world and reality responding to it. Wave function collapse does not mean that reality waits for your thoughts, that visualizing it will make it happen. It means that reality responds to what you do. This is why manifestation by itself will never change your life. And I talk about this much more deeply in my video about manifestation, where I break down why thinking, visualizing, and shifting identity without changing behavior keeps people stuck in the same loops. If you haven't watched that video yet, I highly recommend watching it after this one. Superposition tells us that multiple futures exist as potential, right? But only until something forces choice. And that something is always going to be action meeting the environment. So in quantum mechanics, outcomes are not guaranteed. They exist on a spectrum of likelihood. This is known as probability distributions. Some outcomes are more probable than others based on their conditions. This matters because spirituality often skips this part. People talk as if any reality is instantly available. But physics says otherwise. Certain outcomes become more likely when conditions support them, and less likely when they don't. In real life, this means if you're trying to manifest abundance, but you keep making the same poor money decisions, why would that outcome suddenly become probable just through visualizing and writing it down? If you're calling in healthy relationships, but your nervous system is wired for chaos, why would stability magically appear? Probability shifts when conditions change, not when wishes change. This is where manifestation can either become grounded or it collapses into fantasy. So the fourth concept is known as decoherence. And decoherence explains why quantum systems stop behaving quantum-like when they interact with larger environments. So the more a system interacts with its surroundings, the more it becomes locked into a certain particular state. And this matters because humans live inside of massive systems: social, emotional, economic, biological. Your habits, your routines, your relationship, your environment, all of these reinforce your current state. So trying to quantum leap without changing your environment is like trying to hold a quantum state inside of a hurricane. Decoherence explains why change requires structure, boundaries, repetition, stability, not just desire. And the final concept I want to introduce here is called path dependence. And this is one of the most important ones when it comes to quantum leaping. In physics and complex systems theory, path dependence means that the future state of a system depends heavily on the sequence of steps that came before it. So you don't teleport into a new outcome by simply visualizing, you move through thresholds. Your current position matters, and your past responses also matter. And small shifts, repeated consistently, create non-linear change. And this is why quantum shifts often feel sudden, even though it was built upon slowly. And this is where science and spirituality actually meet. Not in escape, but in responsibility. So when people talk about quantum leaping as an instant jump into a new life, what they're really pointing to is a reorganization of patterns. A moment where enough has shifted, internally and externally, that reality responds differently. Quantum leap, it isn't a jump, it's actually a collapse. The moment one version of you can no longer be sustained and another becomes inevitable. And that brings us to the most important part of this entire conversation, because understanding this intellectually isn't enough. We now have to talk about why most people still stay stuck, even when they know all of this. And then I'll wrap it up and share with you the exact elements that are needed for any quantum leap to be successful. So stick around for that. Understanding what we know now about quantum mechanics, let's bring this back into our lived experience, because that's where the real shift actually happens. Your nervous system prefers what's familiar, even when it's painful. Familiar stress feels safer than unfamiliar freedom. So even when your mind wants a new timeline, your body pulls you back into old patterns. And here's why. Your nervous system has one primary job: to keep you alive. It responds to your environment, mostly unconsciously, using patterns that it learned from the past to predict what's coming next. So anything unfamiliar, even when it's something that you consciously want, can register as unsafe to the body. This is where most people get stuck. They try to think their way into a timeline without changing how they move through reality. Awareness without embodiment doesn't move timelines. The body has to feel safe enough to choose differently. Otherwise, the same reactions repeat, and people call it fate. This is also why affirmations and identity shifts can work, but only when they're done correctly. Because when they work, they don't just change your thoughts, they change your actions, and when your actions change, the body starts responding to reality differently. And that response is what creates the timeline you're affirming. If nothing changes in how you show up, nothing changes in what you experience. You see, just because multiple outcomes exist doesn't mean that you can inhabit them right now. A future can be theoretically possible, but practically unreachable. You have to take into account all of the elements that create a quantum shift. The body interprets reality through sensation, memory, and pattern. New futures require new states of being, not just thoughts. So if a future feels incoherent to the body, it can't be stabilized. Here's a simple way to think about it. The body is the hardware, and the mind is the software. You can try to install the newest software, but if the hardware can't support it, the system glitches, it freezes, it crashes, it can't stabilize the upgrade. Modern quantum leaping and manifestation culture has become way too software focused, trying to transcend the material world, trying to bypass the body with thought alone. But real change requires integration. The hardware has to be able to host the software, and the software needs to support the hardware. One without the other just creates chaos. And this is why reprogramming the subconscious is still valid. It's an essential part of quantum leaping. It's just missing one layer, the physical one. And becoming conscious of the habits and beliefs that shaped who you are today is part of rewiring them into who you're becoming. That's what accelerates forward momentum. That's what opens up new outcomes. Quantum change requires coherence between different parts of you, the mind and the body. Your thoughts, your emotions, your behaviors, they all have to work together. And that coherence is what collapses the old timeline and allows a new probability to become real. And this is really important. Path dependence matters. So the sequence of events before the shift, they're important. They're part of the process. A book that explains this beautifully is Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself by Joe Dispenza. When I first read it, I was quantum leaping without even realizing that's what I was doing. You're probably doing that as well. And here's the part that most people miss. Quantum leaping doesn't happen during visualization. It happens in the subtle moments we usually overlook. When discomfort arises, when fear signals uncertainty, when the familiar pattern tries to reclaim control. That's where awareness meets interaction, and that's where the real leap actually begins. A timeline isn't something that you jump into. It's something that you align with. Every choice you make collapses one set of probabilities and opens another. Quantum leaping doesn't happen in big dramatic moments. It happens in micro decisions. The leap happens inside of discomfort, not clarity. And this is where most people unknowingly revert instead of shift. When that happens, something important breaks down. There's now incoherence between the version of you that you're trying to become and the version of you that's still being reinforced by your habits, environment, and nervous system. That incoherence destabilizes the system, and when the system can't stabilize, it can't hold a new reality. And no matter how clearly you visualize it, it's not gonna happen. You've probably heard the saying that you're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. And that's not just motivational, it's practical. If you're surrounded by people who don't see your dreams as plausible, who subtly question your direction, who project their own limitations onto you, over time your system starts to absorb that information. And now it's not just your point of focus interacting with the field of possibility, it's theirs too. And all the others who are amplifying that, and their doubt will amplify certain probabilities. Their fear adds weight to certain timelines, and you'll feel that. But the opposite is also true. When you surround yourself with people who believe in you, who see your potential, who want you to win, now your awareness is being reinforced instead of challenged. Then your nervous system will feel safer expanding, and the probability of that future actually stabilizing increases. And that's not woo-woo, that's coherence, that's science. This is why I see so many people stuck in the same environments, the same conversations, the same mental loop. Their focus becomes narrow. They stop seeing the range of possibilities that are available to them. They react to life instead of participating in it. Everything feels like it's happening to them, like the universe is playing some cruel joke. But what's really missing isn't effort, it's perspective, a different point of focus, and a different relationship to choice. This is what I've come to understand, and the term that I've coined is quantum space-time portal jumping. It kind of hits on like the woo-woo part of it, but then it's also like grounded in truth, you know? And to do it, there's a few things that are required. First, you need access to the quantum field, which today we only scratch the surface of. Secondly, the movement of the physical body through space and time, hence the name space-time quantum leaping, portal jumping. I like to call it portal jumping. And third, leveraging the passage of time in your favor. And yes, time is an illusion, but that's a whole conversation on its own. If you want me to go there deeper into that in a different video, let me know in the comments. These three elements work together, and there's a lot more to unpack here. So I'm gonna break this video into a few more videos. And if you wanna learn the exact method that I use to quantum leap into the life that I'm living now, consider sticking around, because this is just the beginning. I'd recommend watching this video next if you haven't seen it already, where I share with you how avoidance can often be mistaken for intuition and how to tell the difference. I'll see you there.